It goes on. Liberal leader Justin Trudeau expressing his regret, as you just heard, for making light about this possible Russian intervention in Ukraine after an Olympic hockey defeat. The apology comes as Stephen Harper announced today that the Foreign Affairs Minister John Baird will lead a delegation of Ukrainian Canadians on Friday to meet with representatives of the interim government in Ukraine. Is Canada's diplomatic show of support enough? Should it be backed up with a financial pledge? Ukraine is facing a severe economic crisis, which is why Russia pledged $15 billion to give to the Yanukovych regime when it was there. Now, of course, he's gone. And what about the Trudeau situation? Does the apology end the controversy? I'll put those questions to the Ukrainian ambassador to Canada, Vadim Prystaik, in a few minutes. But let's get to some MPs to get some immediate reaction. James Bezan, the Parliamentary Secretary for the Minister of Defence, is here. The Liberal Foreign Affairs critic Mark Garneau is here. In Toronto, Peggy Nash, the NDP Finance critic, is here. All of you, thanks for being here.
Thanks.
Not in Toronto, in Ottawa. They're all in Ottawa. Peggy Nash, you're all in Ottawa. There you are. Now I can see you. All right, let's start with Mr. Bezan. The Ukrainian ambassador says he accepts Mr. Trudeau's apology. I know there's lots of politics surrounding this. Case closed?
I appreciate the fact that the apology came out. I'm hoping that other people that defended Mr. Trudeau yesterday, like Mark, will also submit their apologies for that flippant statement. It's never an appropriate time to make those types of jokes. This is a serious matter. It is a lack of judgment if people are making those types of comments, and Mr. Trudeau again demonstrated that this weekend. And unfortunately, it falls in line with the comments that he's made previously on foreign policy, especially when he was asked, just before Christmas at an event in Toronto to talk about what type of governments he admires, and he said he admires communist authorities, and that in itself to Ukrainians again it was an insult back then. So I do appreciate the fact that he has reached out to the ambassador. I understand, made a call to Paul Grod. I just hope that he puts out a statement to the entire Ukrainian community here in Canada.
He did speak about it. Mr. Garneau, yesterday you said he had no reason to apologize. Today he did apologize. What changed?
I think he probably thought about the comments and the reactions that occurred yesterday and decided that it would be appropriate, and I admire him for doing that. That's not something that every politician has ever done or will ever do, and I accompanied him today to the Ukrainian ambassador's residence, or to the embassy, and we signed the condolence book, and he's spoken to Mr. Grod of the Ukrainian Canadian Congress. So a decision that was made by him. I salute him for it. I think that's something that Canadians admire, somebody who can review and change their mind and come out publicly and make that kind of a statement.
We'll speak to the Ukrainian ambassador and to Mr. Paul Grod from the Ukrainian Council later in this program. Peggy Nash, does this end this? He visited, he signed the condolence book, which I should say your leader still hasn't done. Do you accept that this is all over?
Well, I also spoke with Paul Grod from the Ukrainian Canadian Congress today, and I think he would like now to focus the attention on the situation in Ukraine. The leader of the Liberal Party, he made a mistake. Yesterday I said I thought he should apologize, and he has done that. And I think that's important. I had several of my constituents call my office in Toronto today complaining that people were making light of the situation in Ukraine, even if inadvertently, and they were very concerned about that. So, let's focus now on the very, very serious situation in Ukraine. And
have you gone to the embassy to sign the book of condolences?
No, I haven't. I did speak with Mr. Grod in person today, and as you know, Evan, I have been at just about every rally and gathering in Toronto and here in Ottawa on this issue. But as you know, I've been on the Finance Committee and several other things today, but I will certainly make my way to the embassy and extend my condolences personally. What we have been calling for also, in addition just to the Finance Minister to visit Ukraine, we thought an all-party delegation, all parliamentary delegation would be important to show in the spirit of cooperation that we would like to see in Ukraine. We'd like to see that kind of cooperation in a delegation and put people on the ground there to monitor the situation.
Let me go back to Mr. Bezan. why won't your government meet with the Ukrainian ambassador to Canada? He's told me that not a single member of Foreign Affairs, the elected officials, Mr. Baird, the parliamentary secretary, none of them, have met with him since the crisis began. None of you have gone to sign the book of condolences. Mr. Harper hasn't spoken to him. Why not?
Well, I can tell you that I actually tried calling him last week. I tried again on Monday, and haven't received a call back. So, there has been, I've reached out to talk to the ambassador. I know him personally and have met with him through this before, when this crisis first started heating up and then started really.
But no one from Foreign Affairs. I mean, I know you're the defense,
yeah,
but what about Foreign Affairs?
Well, he was called into Foreign Affairs when this first started getting very violent. And essentially,
with the deputy minister. It was the deputy minister.
But still, we sent a pretty strong signal to him that what was happening in Ukraine was unacceptable. We asked him to relay that back. He went on the airwaves, as you pointed out yesterday, Evan, that he was defending Yanukovych and this regime. So yeah, there is some hurt feelings here, and the ambassador is still in his place at this point in time. But we're going to work directly with this new transitional government as it comes into play, and work with the transitional president as we move forward on May 25th. And that's what the announcement today by the Prime Minister is about. That we are going to. Do you
recognize this ambassador, though, as representing even the current government now, led by the former Speaker?
Well, until we receive some indication from Kiev that their diplomatic corps that is here is speaking on their behalf, then we'll re-engage at that point in time. But at the same time, Evan, it's important to know that we will be there. We are going over under the leadership by Foreign Affairs Minister John Baird. Prime Minister Harper announced it this afternoon. We're taking parliamentarians and representation from the Canadian-Ukrainian community to ensure that we have the direct dialogue with the opposition parties, with the transitional government, and the authorities that are in place to help them make this transition back into a real good democracy.
Okay. Now, real quick here, what about financial aid? We all know the financial situation in Ukraine is very grave. The Russians, for their part, have offered $15 billion before Yanukovych fled as a stabilizing force, essentially to have support of the regime. The EU is now trying to cobble together some kind of emergency loans. The current government might need up to $35 billion. Question, will Canada contribute financially to any bailout or support to Ukraine?
Look, everything that we're going to be doing, we're going to do in collaboration with our international partners. And so as there's an evaluation taking place by the International Monetary Fund, Catherine Ashton is over there on behalf of the European Commission now, looking at the situation on the ground, making those assessments. That's one of the things that we'll be doing when they're there. It's too soon to say how much they need. It's too soon to say how much we're going to give. It's too soon to say, what those mechanisms are going to be. And it's more than just financial help. They need help in governance. They need help in redrafting their electoral laws and their electoral commission and judicial
the urgent
system.
law, let me just go down. Mr. Garneau, would you support Canada's participation in some kind of financial bailout?
Yes. We've actually said that in our emergency resolution, Evan, on Sunday. We said that Canada should be urging the IMF to intervene in the situation in Ukraine. Ukraine is essentially bankrupt, and I don't know if you're aware of it, but according to the rules of the IMF, every participant has a set amount, a set percentage, and that includes Canada. So yes, we are urging an IMF assistance, financial assistance, and with Canada being one of the participants in it, and that means financial outlays for Ukraine.
Would you be opposed to Russia giving some money and the financial assistance coming from the West?
If there are no strings attached in the same sense that all the other participants are participating, if as part of an IMF assistance package, no.
Right. Okay. Interesting. By the way, there's always strings attached, and whether they're austerity or not, strings are attached when you're lending people billions of dollars. Peggy Nash, would your party support a financial bailout?
Well, as you know, Evan, this was one of the causes that provoked the initial crisis in Ukraine, was when the EU had too tight strings attached to any aid, and Ukraine ended up going to Russia for that support. Russia and the EU, I think, the goal would be that Ukraine has good relations with both, and it's in a unique situation to do that. I think Canada should certainly play its part with the international community in helping Ukraine through this crisis, and that would include both democratically and financially, again, obviously working with the international community.
I got 10 seconds. I want to play you this clip from the Russian ambassadors. They finally commented. On this panel, all of us have discussed the possibility of a Russian intervention and fears of a Russian intervention in Ukraine. Here's what he had to say about it today.
Whoever discusses rumors about Russian military intervention in Ukraine is committing an insult to the intellect of Canadian public. Full stop.
Mr. Bezan, is their government concerned about a military or any kind of Russian intervention there? Is that real, or is that, quote, an insult to the Canadian intellect?
Well, I'm prepared to take the Russian ambassador's word here. If they are concerned about working with their international partners, they're a member of the G8, they're a member of the G20, and they are saying that they're going to respect self-determination and independence within Ukraine, I welcome that. I think that the government has always said right from the start that we want what's best for Ukraine, and that's them to determine. Definitely what we saw in the streets, contrary to what Peggy just said, the catalyst for this is that Yanukovych had agreed to walk in and sign the European Union Free Trade and Economic Cooperation Agreement at Vilnius, and just days before backed out of it because of incentives coming out of Russia, with monies that they didn't actually really realize. So there's only about a third of those dollars ever flow to Ukraine.
Right.
And the protests on the streets were because of the aspirations of the people of Ukraine seeing themselves as Western European and not necessarily crawling back into the old
I'm
old
disagreeing
ways.
with that. I think that's absolutely correct, but I think that Ukraine is in a situation where, if things develop well and under a democratic government, it could be a country with good relations with the West, but also relations with Russia. I think that would be a good outcome. And
I would add, in the best of all worlds, this shouldn't be East against West. This should be for the best interests of the people of Ukraine.
All right, we got to watch the situation closely. James Bezan, Peggy Nash, Mark Gardner, I always appreciate your eyes on this situation, and I think there's the emergency debate is going to be tomorrow night, right?
Yes.
All right, so we'll watch that as well.